Welcome to Barns and Farms with a side of cornbread. This is Shayne Hollifield. If it lives on a farm, sleeps in a barn, or loves Southern food, then we're going to talk about it. Today, we're just doing some porch sitting, drinking on some ginger mint and water, and we are talking with Stephanie of Holler Farms in Barnardsville. How are you today, Stephanie?
Doing very good.
You are. You're living the life right here. So we just want to learn a little bit about you and your background. Like, I know from speaking with you that you mentioned gardening with your dad. And what did that teach you about work ethic and connection and working with the land?
It taught me that zucchinis grow really fast. And so there would always be a surprise zucchini. And just that we were always tasked with keeping the garden weed free and just kind of, nurturing the corn. We learned about how you had to do corn in 4 rows. Tomatoes we did. And then we'd make our own tomato sauce. And so it was kind of a small little alley, like the side of the house farm. I mean, it was our chores to do every day, to tend to that farm. It was our summertime chores.
So your chores have turned into your labor of love.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Do you think these memories shaped the way you approach land and food?
I just think I've always been wanting to get this involved with the land. There's always been kind of little clues that I kind of started picking up that I wanted to do more, but I was always limited by either time or land availability or whatnot. And so I was always making excuses. And so I think when I got here, I had really a really good opportunity and a big piece of land to work with. And I just sort of started just jumping in, basically, and figuring out. I started about halfway, and then I just kind of developed the whole rest of the field and not too crazy. And now I'm sort of scaling it back a little bit.
Got a little bit too excited. Yes. Well,
Yeah.
You have such an interesting path, like your journey, animal science and environmental design, photography. How did all those come together?
I think I'm always just on the quest for figuring stuff out. I'm really interested in a lot of different things. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I do have that art and science split, and I'm always kind of in between those two sides of my brain, and I can never pick one. I think that I kind of always want to say at the end of my life, oh, this is my life's work. I don't have that story. My story is so varied that I'm never going to be able to say I was an expert in one thing.
Well, I think that's great, though. I mean, you have life adventures. Like your life is one big adventure.
Yes.
What pulled you from the creative world of design into open a bakery?
I think it was a plane trip to Hawaii. I'm from Hawaii. And so we were on the way back from Hawaii, and the plane kind of had a bunch of turbulence. And I realized when I got back to Seattle, I didn't want to do anything that I didn't absolutely love. And everything about that trip to Hawaii was about food. Everything I showed my husband was like, we're going to go to have manapua. We're going to go have these weird Chinese triangle things that you could buy. We're have shave ice. We're going to have all the food things in Hawaii that I remember as a kid. And so I thought baking was I had the most experience in baking. So that made the most sense to try to start something in that realm. And then there was a story on the website that was always about this apple tree. We had this apple tree, and it was a 50-year-old apple tree, never been pruned really. And so we always got a bunch of apples. And so I started making these little caramel apple tartlets. And that's kind of what I started the bakery with, that idea, these little tartlets. And then it grew to 98 items on the menu.
It's sort of like your garden growing so big, and now you're scaling it back a little bit. Sounds like a pattern.
I think there's a pattern there.
So you had this desire to source directly from farmers. What was the biggest challenge in trying to close that loop and to try to do that?
Yeah, I just didn't know how. I didn't know how to contact the farmers. I didn't know what it would look like. I was always concerned with the financial part of things. I ran a pretty tight ship with my systems. I think that like a lot of restaurants, they might not understand the multiple systems that you have to have in order to make enterprise economically viable.
Yes.
You have to kind of you just can't spend more than you earn.
Yeah, you can't say, this is a great idea. Let's do this today.
Right. So I just was concerned about things kind of jumping around in pricing, and then how would that affect my bottom line? And I had staff to pay, and I wanted to make sure that everything was consistent. And I like to pick my produce myself. So I didn't like the idea of somebody else making that decision for me.
Yeah.
So
Well, I can't do the pickup. I cannot do the grocery store pickup, because if I'm going to get something, I want to be the one that picks it.
Yeah, exactly.
And I hate buying produce from the grocery store anyway.
Right.
So this is, if I could just come over here and pick from you, that would be great.
Yeah.
If a crow flew over to Black Mountain, this mountain right here. So running a bakery sounds romantic, but what was the reality behind the things?
The reality was no shows, people, not doing things the way I liked. But that was a learning experience for me, because it's not really about my way. It's about teaching them that, like, we are on this ship. The ship is Sugar Bakery, and, I'm just happen to be on the ship with you. And so that kind of started changing things around, and I started getting better retention, my staff was great, they were the passion that they showed for what we were doing was great. And we were very lucky to have a really good customer base that basically were our friends. There was 4 hospitals around us, and so it was every day. Some people would come in 3 times a day.
Wow.
So you got
different
to know
shifts. Yeah.
Right. You got to come in, you got to know.
That's key. That's a big key to the business is the repetitive customers. What were some of the hardest lessons you learned as a business owner with the bakery during that time?
I think it was not being good enough at nurturing my employees and keeping them where I would let them go too easily. And I think there was an opportunity to build a relationship and learn why they might be doing certain behaviors, or, I feel like I should have been a little better at communicating and nurturing and getting them to really understand what the goal was, and seeing what they were going through. And, rather than sometimes I feel like I was treating my employees like dogs. Like, if they didn't they have to do exactly what I asked them. And it's like, it's not how it is.
Yeah.
They're people, and so I learned that lesson. And by the end, I was like, okay, it's time. I think the reason that I kind of made the choice to let the bakery go was because it became so hard to find help.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like that's across food service in general.
Yes.
I've experienced it myself. So you made the bold move to sell your bakery to your employee. What did that moment feel like for you?
It was scary. It was really scary. Yeah. I remember she was walking home, and I remember walking with her and talking to her. And then finally we hit a stop sign, and I just said, so would you ever like to buy the bakery? And I also knew that her parents were going to be coming into town. And I was like, I think this would be a good chance for her to say yes.
You sort of gave her an opportunity to flourish.
I think the thing that hit me, I was like, I had this great employee, and I was like, what is going to happen if she quits? And then it was like, well, what if I quit?
What if I do it first?
And so that kind of that's been kind of my running go-to phrase for everything. Anytime I see a problem, I've been saying, what if I turned the problem upside down and did the opposite? And it's really a very interesting strategy.
Yeah. You hit the road, and what were you searching for during that season of your life?
We thought we were going to be living in an Airstream forever. We just thought, this is it. We have $23,000 house, and this is great. Who else has a $23,000 house,
that you can take anywhere?
Right. And we just mostly we wanted to meet friends. And then I ended up I think I went to a grain conference in Maine, and I met a bunch of bakery owners, and then I would reconnect with them. And I started becoming interested in other people's businesses, and sort of started thinking about mentoring. I got really interested in bookkeeping for some reason. That was something that I was really good at with the bakery. There was really no plan. I think It was just that this was going to be our life, and eventually we're going to run out of money.
So was there a moment on that journey where things shifted for you internally? Like,
I think it was, we grew tired of the RV parks. They just became, every single one is like really close to a freeway. And we were just kind of, didn't feel like that's where we wanted to, we didn't want to live right next to a giant school bus or like a giant, huge RV that was overshadowing us with the air conditioning's going all night long. And
we wanted this.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we had stayed in a couple of different places on the road on people's property. And so that just became like what we kind of thought we were going to do, find a place to park the trailer. Yeah. And then I had a broken ankle and I didn't have anything to do. So let's just look at real estate.
Yeah. That was sort of like was that like a detour or a divine intervention? I mean,
yeah.
Well, and that's how we met when you came to the North Carolina. So
yeah,
that was a meant to be thing.
Yeah. We didn't even have a plan for living here. We didn't even think about it. We just thought this seems like a good enough place,
Yeah. So what made you choose a working field over a tucked away mountain property?
I think come from working class. I think, it's in my bones. I need to do something. I'm like a shark. I always have to work. So it just felt right. And I think there was another property we looked at, which was kind of similar, where it was kind of tucked away, but then there was a field in front. But this one just felt right to us. It's got like a sense of space. There's a creek. There's a mountain. We're behind a church, so it's really quiet. There's never anybody at that church. So,
and it's so beautiful too. Like, it's just, you are sort of tucked in to your
nobody knows we're back here.
Yeah. You sort of mentioned this, but when you first stepped onto the land, did you know what it would become? Did you have this idea of what it would become when you first?
No, I had some learning to do. I think like my first thing was get some fruit trees in the ground. And that was like urgent, it felt like.
Yeah.
So we moved in the fall. And then I just kind of started thinking and planning but I read a couple of books. I went to a couple of classes at like Leams Creek that I started learning about permaculture. And the big choice was how wide my beds are going to be. But I didn't really know anything about growing anything. I mean, I think I ordered a seed, like a homesteader seed special from Amazon.
Well, you could not even, nobody would know that looking at this right now. Seriously.
It's weird. And I remember like growing cucumbers and going, oh, wait a minute, cucumbers grow on a vine. And then my memory started coming back about my time back at my dad's garden. And so then it was just like everything was just hodgepodge tucked around. And I remember, I think I grew 50 tomato plants and I thought that was insane. I thought, there's no way how am I going to do with all these tomatoes? And now I grow 150 feet of tomatoes. Yeah. So.
Do you ever make tomato pie?
I make tomato pie. We make
tomato pie.
Yeah. We make a lot. Mostly we can them.
Yeah.
We roast them and can them. Yeah. But that's one of our big crops. Yeah. And peppers. Yeah.
I love peppers too.
Yeah.
So at one point you considered turning this into a business. What shifted your perspective on that?
I think it was the financial viability of what I wanted to do. I didn't want to be like I wanted to be a specialty farm specializing in herbs. And I don't think there's the marketplace here for just that, for me to make enough money to live.
Yeah.
I think when COVID hit, I started being nervous about food insecurity. And I remember I bought a bunch of seed potatoes. I was growing dent corn. I still have dent corn that I grew in 2020.
Really?
Like it's just blue corn and Indian corn. And it was that, I don't know. I had this idea that I had to grow all of everything, including wheat and do the whole thing. I just wanted to do everything.
Well, and it's smart. Like, COVID's gone, but it's still smart to.
Yeah. Yeah. And now it's just that I really don't trust the food supply. It's just.
That's smart.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. Like I know everything that there's nobody above us. So
Yeah.
there's no chemical plant that's leaching into our field.
So you experimented with herbs, crops, and even applied for grants. What did those experiences teach you about farming as a livelihood? You sort of mentioned.
Yeah, I think it was just the workload, and there's a lot more that goes into growing a tomato than just putting a plant in the ground. It's kind of like a cake too, like a cake is you've got like several different steps that you have to do before you can actually make the cake.
Yeah.
You have to make the cake layers, and you got to let it cool, and then you got to make the fillings, and you've got all these components. And so it's kind of hard to cost a cake.
Yeah.
Because you don't really know like how much time you've spent. And then there's the mountain life, which it takes forever to get anywhere, And so it's like you're going to drive all the way
miles away, but
drive all the way across the mountain to deliver like $25 worth of herbs or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's no way that that's going to work out.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of scaled that back, I guess, but still I still had doubled the field and I still was filling it up every season. And so last year was the first year that I kind of leaned more heavily on cover crops. So that was something that I was growing more of. Yeah. And then I've expanded the middle of the field and made it more, I just took away a third of the garden.
Yeah.
Last fall. So that feels really good.
Yeah, more manageable.
Yeah. I still feel like I have too many beds, but there's always room for cover crops. That's the thing. There's always room for buckwheat. That's one of my favorites.
So it sounds like there was a moment where you realized that everything doesn't have to be profitable or business. Like, this is like your labor of love. It still has value. It's still feeding you and your family,
Yeah, I think I've been calling it lately my little research project because it's more about like just learning about life and I don't listen to music or anything. I just listen to the birds and I look at the soil, and it's just like these weird little stories start coming up, and you like, oh, there's this weed, there's this guy again, and so I have to learn that lesson a lot.
But that's so peaceful, like to retire and have that peace.
Yeah. It's good.
That's what retirement should be.
It's good. It's good. And I learned about diversity and how important that is, and just like, well, that's important in life with humans too, to have people around you that aren't anything like you, and so
it's true.
It's been fun and good. And, it's just a reminder to just keep it, and then also just use what you have. There's all these lessons. They're all over the place. I mean, they happen every day. So,
and speaking of people and diversity, let's talk about Steve a little bit. Steve's your neighbor. This has been his family's land.
Yeah.
This was your house was the home place.
Right.
So how is that experience living so closely with Steve and being on family land? It wasn't yours.
Right. It's like we're the outliers and we're the ones, and we get along really well. Everyone's so different, There's his son-in-law, Robbie, who makes guns. And then there's Steve, who might spray some chemicals. And then there's the church that is very quiet, but occasionally they'll have a tour bus parked out. I think I love being part of this history. It's important to me to respect the past. And I love the history of this house. And I love thinking about his mom being a good cook and his dad being into music.
And I'm sure that they're looking at this and thinking that this is great. Because this whole valley through here is full of farmers for generations and generations.
Right. I mean, him and his dad farmed this land, and and he's very competitive. Like he told me the other day, oh, my corn's already up. I'm like, okay, I'm not planting my corn yet. I like to plant my corn later, But he's always competitive, like he's got the first corn, and he does grow some good corn though. I mean,
So you went deep into the no-till farming. What drew you into that philosophy?
Yeah, I think I remember there was a field trip I went on with the bakery when we visited a no-till wheat farm. And just seeing the organic farm, quote unquote, next door that had been doing heavy tillage because that's the only way they could control weeds.
Yeah.
And their erosion was crazy. Like it was like a huge mountain of all of their nutrients just being washed away. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I've proven it, like Hurricane Helene, nothing happened like in my field. Everything was fine.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. And so,
Considering that the creek came up real close to your house.
yeah, I mean, it's, I don't know. And I mean, yeah, sometimes I'm like, oh, this chickweed, I would love to just till it in, but I've never tilled.
So for somebody who doesn't understand it, can you break down why soil health matters so much?
Okay. This is my science side. The trees, the sun provides light to the trees, and the leaves create, through the magic of photosynthesis, they create sugars that they send down to the roots. And then the roots will send some of that sugar to some of the bacteria in the soil. And they have this whole interstate highway of free trade agreement, where it's like, I'll give you a little bit of this and you give me a little bit of this. And so as a result, the soil becomes more nourished with the beneficial bacteria and even funguses that will feed the plants. Because if you don't have good soil health, your plants won't get the happy nutrients from the bacteria. And so when you till, you basically take all of those networks that have been created over however many years, and you're breaking them up into tiny little pieces. And so then imagine if you had like everything filed in a file cabinet and then the file cabinet just exploded. That's basically what happens. You can't find your bank statement, So, what I do is I use this big thing called a broad fork, and I'll just basically go and I'll dig it into the ground, and then I'll just basically burp the soil. Kind of like when you work out. When you work out, you kind of try to move your muscles a little bit just to give them a little chance to get bigger and stronger.
Yeah.
And so by adding a little more air to the soil, that helps stimulate some of the bacteria to create better networks. And so
that science brain's really working on there.
Yeah. Well, then you can even add the whole component of different weeds. And so you have to kind of look and see, like, there might be a certain patch of a bunch of dock in one area or a bunch of plantain in one area. Or I just noticed there was a bunch of this, I don't know what the real name is, called Jesus plant. And so each weed is there to also try to make everything normal again, because everything's trying to become a forest.
Yeah.
And we're trying to stop that. But we want to kind of use the idea of a forest in farming because it makes the soil healthier, it makes the plants healthier, it makes the food healthier.
And I love the idea of weeds actually helping the soil. It's a natural process.
So if you take a weed out or you spray Roundup on it or whatever, the thing that the weed is trying to do to rebalance the soil, you just took it away. And so you have to somehow put it back. And so I'll make these little concoctions of weed tea, and then I'll pour that liquid back into the soil.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's supposed to. It's sort of, I've seen it work in certain areas where the dock was really bad, and I made a dock tea, and then that seemed to get whatever dock is doing to the soil. I think it's calcium, and it helps to like say, okay, we don't need to do this anymore.
Wow.
So it's crazy.
That is, and it's free.
It's really stinky, but it's free.
Even better. What's been the biggest transformation you've seen since shifting? What's the biggest thing that you've learned out of all this process?
Always do what's the most important thing to do. Don't focus on the making something perfect. So just make sure that you're always planting seeds and always harvesting, because that's the whole reason that I'm doing this. And so I'm trying to kind of learn that lesson so that I can get more benefit out of what I'm doing.
You made a powerful connection between plant health and human health. Tell us a little more about what you've learned.
Well, I don't want to talk about fiber too much because I could go on and on about fiber, but I love fiber. And fiber is very important. If you eat a lot of fiber, you end up having really good gut health, and then it changes everything. Like your brain works, everything works better.
Yeah.
Everything works better with fiber.
Everything revolves around the gut.
It does.
So
it does. It's our own.
sense.
We've co-evolved with these bacteria. And so this idea that bacteria is bad is the wrong approach. Yeah. We need to be in the muck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you feel like working with the land has changed sort of the way you care for yourself?
Yeah, I'm trying to be better. That's one of my objectives this year was to make the land take less of a chunk out of my life, and so that I can do those more calm things like going out and on a hike or going on a run, or I bought some roller skates.
Roller skates.
So things like that.
Okay. So what has nature taught you that no business or classroom ever could?
That everything you need is right in front of you. That you don't need this idea that we need to add more and more and more to our lives is just causing us more and more pain. And so the things that we can do with what we already have, like we already know what to do. We're born with that. Everything will work out if you just stand back and let it,
Yeah. Well, that's a good takeaway. What is your favorite meal to cook straight from what we're looking at right here, just straight from your land?
Yeah. I really am liking greens and beans lately. I also really like a Vietnamese style salad.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds delicious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I really like that, like fresh bok choy and fresh, I'll fry up some onions to put on top.
Sounds
things like
amazing.
that. Yeah.
So when you have the beans and greens, do you have cornbread with it?
Occasionally.
Because I have to throw in the cornbread somewhere because of this podcast. It has cornbread in the
So the
name.
cornbread I like.
Yeah, that's my next question. What's your favorite cornbread?
I like a fully loaded cornbread, almost like a pudding.
Oh, yeah.
So I like a lot of corn kernels.
Yep.
I like a lot of peppers. I like herbs. And I like a good spring onion butter mix.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Like I had some cornbread that had some local sausage and fresh corn, just straight off the cob.
Yeah.
Yeah. The savory is definitely the way to go, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, sweet, I'll eat the sweet.
Right.
It's not my favorite.
No, that's cake.
It is. That's dessert. That's cornbread dessert. So you host people and sometimes give tours of your garden, or do you test them with those spicy peppers that you right in there?
It was John does. He says, "Oh, it's not that spicy," and it's like,
I would love that because my grandpa, he would always have a pepper in his hand every time he sat down to eat.
yeah,
And I grew up loving those hot cayenne spicy peppers, kind of thing.
yeah.
So I would love it. But yeah, John, he likes to.
He has asbestos mouth, is what he says.
I
We
do
always
too.
grow way more spicy peppers than we actually could use, and we end up drying a bunch and making some sauces. We'll make like a fermented chili paste, and then we'll freeze a bunch, and then we roast some and can them. Yeah, the peppers we go a little crazy on the peppers because you never know. Like 50 feet you never know what you're going to get out of that. So you might as and they always get mixed up too. For some reason, the peppers I might grow like 18 different varieties, and somehow either they topple over and they lose their label, and I never know what they are.
Or they just sort of lean over to the spicy side. Yeah. So for somebody that's out there listening right now that feels disconnected from nature, what would you tell them?
Do whatever you can to grow something, I think. I think just even starting small, I always thought it would be cool if a bunch of people, like one person grows tomatoes and one person grows the greens. Greens are one of the easiest things to grow. And you can, I've had my spinach in the greenhouse year round, and the kale too, and the parsley too. And so there's a lot of things you can grow with very little space. And like lettuces turn around in under 2 months. And so they go pretty quick.
Yeah.
Go pretty quick.
So just start small and just start.
Right. Just pick one thing. Pick one thing that you can eat. Raspberries are very easy.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. What does a rich life look like to you today? Like, I'm sure that's changed over your course of adventures that you've been through. So is this like...
I think I'm ready to turn around. I think I've kind of exiting my monastic phase, and I feel like I'm interested in sort of sharing this somehow. I don't know how. It's kind of prohibitive. I'm also interested in just connecting more with restaurant owners and talking about what they're going through. I feel like I have like this create and share thing. And so I've done a lot of the create part. And so now I'm like really motivated to share as much of it as possible. Yeah.
That's great. Well, maybe somebody out there listening to this will reach out and say, hey, let's talk.
Yeah.
I mean, that's sort of what it's all about. And,
Yeah.
and I haven't been here in so long, but I just knew from knowing you, that I sort of figured that you probably had it real big. I didn't know you were scaling it back now. I
Yeah.
just knew that you were going to make it grow and grow and grow because you sort of had a vision.
Yeah. I like the addition of the fruit trees in the middle. I think like having more spaces to sit and quietly relax. I mean, we have chairs all over the property. I think that's, adding more and more fruit trees has been good.
Yeah. That nice little sitting bench that you have in the middle down there is pretty great.
Yeah. That was a roadside find. Someone like one of those porch, those swings that people have.
Mhm.
It was all messed up. So I've turned it into a little trellis. And then the chair from it is the swing underneath the sugar maple.
Oh, wow. Yeah. It's repurposed it.
We love finding things on the side of the road.
I love your little office that's right down in the middle of it.
That used to be the wash pack. When we were going to be a big farm, we said we have to have a wash pack shed.
Yeah.
And then we bought one of those stock tanks, and we were washing all of our greens in it. We thought we were official, and then now the stock tank has moved in the backyard. It's a bathtub. It would be nice to have an office in the field because a lot of times when I'm doing planting, I can't remember what plant goes on what bed, and I need to look on my computer or something like that because I grow almost 100 different crops, and plus each one has like 2 to 3 successions. So, I have arugula 1, arugula 2, and then, and so it's remembering all of those and where they're supposed to go.
Yeah.
And then also being able to like walk the field and say, when are they supposed to be done? I've been a lot better about it this year, but just not having to walk all the way back up the house. It's only that far. It's far enough that it's like 8 degrees and you're walking up here and you can't get your shoes off to go into the house.
Well, so one thing that stuck out in my mind when I saw you last month, you had talked about how, and you don't hear farmers talk about like AI or anything, but you had told me that you has a little bit of help with some of your crop.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time deep diving in the database. And I've built multiple databases for this field just to keep, because I can't keep, there's no way I can keep any of that stuff straight, and I've tried to group it. I'm like, how about we just call it all salad greens? And then but it's still like, you still have to know spinach is different than lettuce, and and they do behave differently, and they mature differently, and they want different things, and and so finally the Chat GPT is kind of helping me to get the harvest part of it, because that's the other thing I've never really kept good track of, is what I've actually harvested and what the dollar value of what I grow is.
Yeah.
I have a budget. I have a $300 budget in the beginning for the seeds and whatever other little plants I might want to buy. I try to keep within that, but I'd like to see what the harvest is, because I want to kind of dial in a little bit better what I'm growing. Am I growing too much of this or not enough? Like one year I grew a whole bed of kale. I'm like, there's no way. Kale, you cut it and regrows. So you don't need to have that much of it. You know?
Well, it sounds like you've learned a lot by trial and error. And
I learned the hard way. That's the best way.
Yeah.
It's always the best. Mistakes are important.
Yeah.
Very important.
Well, we appreciate you coming out or me coming out here. It's been too long.
Yeah.
Like, well, hopefully a restaurant owner will reach out to you and you can do a little bit of collaboration. And,
Cool.
swap some
stories
for sure.
So,
All right. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Until next time, farewell. God bless y'all. And don't forget to thank a farmer.